Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Heart to Heart. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is CORA. Probably none of you know her. Jokes, jokes.
God, I hope so.
So we're very excited to have you today, CORA. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's always really fun to do interviews, and I've never actually gotten to reveal cards outside of like announcement videos. So this is really cool.
Yes, nice. A live one. Okay, so before we reveal the card, and it's gonna be in a minute, just can you tell us a bit about who is Cora?
Yeah, of course. I know her so well. Um, yeah, so my name is Cora Georgiou. I'm 26 years old, born and raised in the Midwest, and I spent about 4 years working as a professional esports commentator and host for Hearthstone and Pokemon primarily. Um, and in the fall of 2019, I was hired onto the Hearthstone development team, on the final design team, actually, to work in balanced design. I did that for about 4 months, spent some time on Battlegrounds, and since early 2020, I would say, spring 2020, I've been working on the initial design team, making Hearthstone expansions. So, yeah, it's really fun. I really enjoy it. And hopefully, I'll have some fun stuff to talk about today.
Good, good. Well, I have lots and lots of questions for you, so I hope you're ready for them. But before we dive into the subject everyone is here to know about, I think it's time that we show this little baby.
It's a good one.
Are you guys ready? I'm just so excited. Like, I'm pressing on the button. I'm like, should I press? Should I press? Okay. So it is school teacher. So it is a Naga, guys. It is a Naga, a 4 mana 5/4 Naga. And so the name is School Teacher. The battle cry is add 1/1 Nagaling to your hand. Discover a spell that costs 3 or less to teach it. This is such a cool card because it's a pink card, guys. Everyone, I got a pink card. This is amazing, I know. Please don't say it's a purple card. It is a pink card for everyone that is not colorblind here. So yes.
I will take your word for that.
So yes, I'm so excited that I got a pink card to reveal. And so yes, this is such a cool card. The art, everything about it is just like it's out of the ordinary. I love it so much. So I would love for you to talk a little bit more about this new function because if we remember well, Swamp Queen Agatha was able to teach spell, and that's the only card I remember that had this ability. So if with this card we're able to target spells, are we going to be able to choose the target?
Yeah, so this works very similarly to Swamp Queen Hagatha. You will discover from 3 choices of spells that cost 3 or less, and whichever one you choose will then become a battle cry for the 1/1 Nagaling that goes into your hand. And if that spell that you choose is targeted, you will be able to pick the targets. So, in the case of Shaman, there are cards like Lightning Storm and Feral Spirit, but there's also like Scalding Geyser, for instance, which we revealed recently for the new set. If you choose to play this in Mage, you can get any number of the Mage Secrets, which all cost 3 mana. So there's interesting different uses to it because it is a neutral card that can go in any class. So, whatever the best 3 cost spell that you can think of that's available to you, maybe this can use it.
Amazing. When you determine to use unique words like teach, so when in this process did you decided to bring it in the mix?
The word teach specifically, or this
Yes,
card itself? Yeah.
the word teach.
It's something that we do from time to time. We generally like to be very descriptive with our language. Hearthstone card text in particular is quite simplified, and generally easy enough for anybody to understand, even if they don't play the game. But sometimes we do like to use more descriptive or intentionally general words. And in this case, teach does a couple things for us. It's very flavorful. This is obviously a school teacher who's teaching sort of a student how to cast a spell. It also saves us text space because we're already at about 4 lines. And if we were to expand on the effect of the noggling with, a number of words rather than just teach, we would probably end up having some really bad templating on there. So selfishly, that's a reason that we do it quite often, is we don't like to bloat the text boxes of cards. So in this case, teach just kind of felt like it worked. It's still very evocative. It still feels quite descriptive, and it saves us text space.
Of course. What are the difficulties in creating abilities that have new keywords or keywords that players may not be familiar with?
Regarding like Dredge, for instance, or Colossal?
Yes.
Yeah. So making keywords is tough. In initial design, the first 3 or 4 weeks or so of a set are what we call like broad mechanic exploration. And what that means is, all the ideas outside of the box thinking, big or small, generally quite big at that point. We sort of throw them at the wall and we test everything and find out what we like and find out what has good gameplay and what has good theming for the set. And in this case, we tried quite a lot for the Sunken City in particular. We start with brainstorms and every single word that reminds you of being under the ocean. Swim, dive, dredge and colossal in this case. I think at one point in time we definitely had a dive keyword. We had a mechanic called Lost Wonders for a long time, which were these like treasures that started at the bottom of your deck that you had to play cards to pull up to the top of your deck. And it's really about, just finding what is evocative of the set theme, but then has the good gameplay and good mechanics behind it to actually, support an entire set. So it's quite a lengthy process, but I will say that for this set in particular, I think we found Dredge and Colossal quite early, actually. There's definitely sets where, keywords and mechanics go into final design in creation. We'll play with things for weeks on end and then eventually realize, there's just this one problem with it that we can't solve, and we need to scrap it for one reason or another. But with Dredge and Colossal, we narrowed in on them pretty early into the design process, I would say.
Okay, good. It's super interesting, especially when 2 new words get into one set. It's like it's a lot and people are excited and we really want to play with them and see how we're gonna make it work.
Yeah.
Okay, so historically, we haven't often seen mechanics from previous Hearthstone sets revisit in new sets, though that has a bit changed in recent years. Do you have a favorite mechanic that you would like to bring back?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I will say it's pretty infrequent that we take an old keyword and we make it Evergreen is what we call it, which is, where we'll continue to use it going forward. I think the last one might have actually been Dormant, which we sort of didn't intend to make Evergreen, and then we just kind of kept making cards that were dormant in some way or another. After the dormant demons in Ashes of Outland, we had like Archdruid Neralex, and now we have the divers in 23.0 or in the Sunken City. So that's kind of one that just sort of snuck in, and we just eventually decided, the gameplay's good enough, we'll keep it. I think, me personally, I do like Echo. I think Echo has some problems inherently, like, making Echo cards that cost 5 or more just really isn't possible, I guess, because Playing 2/6 cost cards in a turn isn't possible unless you have discounts or unless you're guff. But I do think the gameplay of Echo is really interesting. However, we can kind of get around that with, saying repeatable this turn on a card. So it's not, I think, necessarily to bring back Echo. One keyword that I did really like was Reborn. And I think I liked the gameplay of Reborn with Death Rattle minions in particular. I think the Making Mummies, Saviors of Uldum Mech Paladin deck was one that I had a lot of fun with. And that deck revolved around Reborn minions. I think there's some interesting gameplay with like Death Rattle minions, like I said, and Reborn. And that's certainly one that's easy enough to tack on this in minions. I think that one's quite fun. Also, tradable is one that we have talked about a fair bit internally. Just because tradable makes situational cards much easier to play in decks, which means it makes situational cards easier for us to design. Cards like Drakefire Amulet, for instance, which are super expensive, probably wouldn't make the cut in most decks, but when they're tradable, you don't need to worry about them clogging up your hand. So that's one that we've had some conversations about. There hasn't been a decision made there as of yet about whether we like to bring it back at some point. Obviously, it's still in Standard, having just come out in United and Stormwind, but I could see that being one that we maybe would use in the future as well. That one's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I agree with, especially with every tech card that we want to introduce. Like when we want to add it to a deck, like I'm thinking about the Viper that has been used so much, and mainly because it's a tradable card. So you do have like lots of like it's so easy to be okay. I'm not gonna use it, but at least it's tradable, so you can cycle through your deck.
Exactly.
So it's how to make a tech card better. For sure. Okay, good. That's very interesting. Do you have an ability from a previous Hearthstone card you like to flesh out into a full mechanic?
Oh gosh. That's really interesting. I think it takes quite a bit for us to flesh an ability into a full mechanic. I think like one that I've heard people talk about quite a bit is what is it? Like evasive, essentially, that can't be targeted by spells and hero powers. That's not one that we use much, but I could see that being something we keyword in the future. Cleave also, that also damages adjacent minions, on like Cave Hydra, for instance. That I could see being one if we wanted to use that ability more often. I could see us keywording it. Enrage. I'm kidding. Yeah, I think like selfishly, there's definitely mechanics I would like to see us use more often, but fleshing them out into like set-wide keywords or things of that nature usually isn't necessary. Things like Zephyrus's perfect cards, for instance, like that is so much fun. I would love to see that ability eventually come back in some way, but there's a lot of upkeep involved in that, and we probably couldn't do it on too many cards. Building a beast as well, from like Deathstalker Rexar, I think is super fun, but I don't think that would be something we'd want to flesh out into a full mechanic. So yeah, there's a lot. But I think Cleave and Evasive or whatever in particular, I think are two that I could see us doing.
Good. I would I would love to see those. Okay, so this card is a Naga. So what are the challenges involved in creating a new minion type?
Well, so this was the first minion type that I've been around for us creating, in Standard at least. I helped with like Elementals and Battlegrounds, but Elementals had already been established in Standard Hearthstone, so it was easy enough to transition the elemental abilities in Standard over to like Battlegrounds, for instance, just playing a bunch of elementals. But for Naga, it really what it boiled down to for us was we wanted the Naga minion type in Hearthstone to be representative of the Naga type in World of Warcraft, of the Naga race. And the Naga race in World of Warcraft are these spell-casting creatures who are descendant from these elves that of course, Queen Azara had to make a bargain with N'Zoth after the Great Sundering when, her kingdom was plunged into the sea and it was a life or death situation. So the spell casting being at the heart of their race and very important to their story was what we wanted to capture. And conveniently, it was very different from what any other minion types have done in the past. And we sort of went into it knowing that we've had success with minion types in the past when they've kind of had that linchpin to bind them together. Things like dragons saying if you're holding a dragon in your hand, or elementals saying if you played an elemental last turn. So we spent a lot of time trying to search for, well, what is this statement, I guess, that we can put on a bunch of Naga that somebody can look at and say, oh, yeah, well, I mean, that's a Naga, looks like a Naga, has the Naga tag, says blank in the text box. Of course it's a Naga. It helps us guide design. It helps us build archetypes around it. And I don't remember 100% what else we tried other than this. I know we did try other spell-related things, but this is the one that stuck. It was the one that had the best gameplay. It was the one that felt the most like spell weaving. You would play a spell and you would play your Naga, and then you would have these spells that get upgraded in hand if you played a Naga while you were holding them. So you would sort of have to weave in the spells and the Naga. While every deck might not be a dragon deck or every deck might not be an elemental deck, most decks are going to play spells forever. Most decks are going to play spells. So even if, you might not be playing a deck that is super Naga synergistic, you're still going to be playing a deck with spells that maybe there's a couple of Naga that, you really would like to use for more generic effects like drawing cards or buffs or whatever it may be. That you can slot into the deck because it already has spells in it. So it felt like a rather natural fit, and we really liked the gameplay. So that was sort of how it came up. It's gameplay, thematics are sort of the big two that we were looking for, and this fit the bill.
Amazing. Thanks for the explanation. Okay, so this looks like a good card in Arena, being a value generating card. We had some prominent Arena streamers reveal cards and discussed from an Arena perspective. So we had Dreads, Redbeard, and Judge. And while design mainly focused on standard, do you ever design cards thinking about other formats in the consideration of all things like Arena?
Sometimes, yeah. Like you said, it's not the priority. But I would be lying if I said, I haven't kept around a card or two because I thought, oh, this has some potential in other formats, whether that be Arena or duels sometimes. But I personally have played a lot of Arena. Arena is how I built my Hearthstone collection originally. So it's always kind of fun when we make a card that fits into a standard archetype that we're intending to be viable. And also we can see having viability in Arena. And I think this is one of those cards. This is one of those Naga that, because it's so flexible, because every deck has 3 cost or lower spells that they're probably going to want to, be able to use with this. I could see it playing in standard quite well. And then, like you said, any sort of generation in Arena, especially spells, is really valuable. So this definitely could slot in there as well. So yeah, it's sort of a happy accident sometimes when it happens. But there's definitely times where we, especially with like neutral cards, because they're across all of the classes. Sometimes we make neutral cards and we're like, oh yeah, this is pretty good in Arena. we should look at that.
Okay, good. Well, I just thought about Arena because like when it's stats on the board plus you're able to generate a spell, it's always, I feel it's always very very valuable. Let's see if we're gonna be able to play it, but I'm pretty sure we will see it.
I think so.
Good. Do you find inspiration in your design process from aspect of World of Warcraft lore? Looking at keywords from the upcoming expansion, the ability fits the underwater theme. Did you choose the location in World of Warcraft first and then design the abilities that fit? Or do you have new mechanics in mind, and then look for lore and area of World of Warcraft to mix the mechanics together?
Yeah, I think most of the time, theme comes first. Yeah. So the way that the process really works is the initial design set lead, which in this case was John McIntyre, who has since moved on to be the Battlegrounds pod leader. He also led Dark Moon Fair, by the way. He came into leading this set knowing that he really wanted to do underwater. Underwater was something that we had talked about for like years. Every time we do a team-wide brainstorm going into the lead up to starting work on a new expansion, we do a big brainstorm, we throw all the ideas on a board, and then everybody sort of votes on what they think would be a set they would like to see. And it's still ultimately up to the set lead, what they end up flushing out into presentations and putting before leadership for leadership to decide what we're going to do. But in this case, underwater had been at the top of that list for so long that it was kind of decided that we were going to do it at some point, and it was just a matter of when would it fit. And it just so happened that going into a new year where, we just came out of a year where all of the sets were linked, telling the stories of our 10 mercenaries and really revisiting the classic World of Warcraft experience. We wanted to do 3 isolated sets this year that were themes that maybe we've wanted to do for quite some time. So this felt like a great place to start. And we knew we wanted to do underwater, but we weren't exactly sure where in World of Warcraft lore should we base that experience. And I saw a lot of people speculating, before the full set was announced. Is it going to be Nazjatar? Is it going to be Vajir? Sort of were the big two. And it felt like Nazjatar and Zinajari and that whole story of the Great Sundering and of Queen Azara was just the bigger story for us to tell. And it felt like the environment was right. It felt like the characters were right. Obviously the creation of the Naga, giving us the opportunity to make a new Minion type was really exciting. So it just felt like everything just kind of lined up into what we wanted out of this set. So I would say theme definitely came first, and then from there it's quite top down. It's looking at the stories and the campaigns from World of Warcraft and the stories of the Naga and these specific characters, and how can we translate all of that over to Hearthstone? How can we translate the underwater experience or adventuring or being a Naga and defending your home or underwater creatures, those sorts of things, into keywords, into card art, into mechanics, into archetypes. And that's more or less how it goes most of the time. Occasionally we'll come into a set with an idea for, I think this mechanic would be cool, and we'll have to try and line that mechanic up to a flavor fit. But I think most of the time flavor comes first, and then designing mechanics around it, which seems to work fairly well.
Good. So Blade Master Okani, the new card that everyone was able to see as a teaser of the set, has an effect that we haven't seen before in the history of Hearthstone. The ability to counter something other than a spell. Previously, the only way to disrupt minions from being cast was to use cards like Dirty Rat or Mutanus while it was our turn. What brought about the introduction of this ability, and is this ability something you would expand into other cards' targets?
I really wish that I could remember exactly where Okani's design came from. I vaguely remember it existing in the initial design process, so I think it's something that has been around for a while. The Ankoan creatures are sort of the enemies of the Naga. And in this case, it made a lot of sense for, okay, well, if they're sort of opposing the Naga and the Naga are casting spells, then the Ankoan would counter spells in some way. But like you said, we've only countered spells in the past with obviously like Counterspell, very aptly named. We've never countered minions. And I know there was some work done, UI and engineering, to make it so that we can counter minions, so that their battle cries don't trigger, for instance, so that their death rattles don't trigger. And anytime we put in that kind of work, I think we're always sort of keen to use it going forward. I don't know if we do have an instance of where we've used it since then, but I would say it's not something that is ever off the table. I could totally see us doing like, I don't know, like a secret, for instance, that is like counter minion rather than counter spell. But I don't know if we've done that yet. But I could see it. Yeah. It's a nice flexible card. I think it worked out really well, especially for a giveaway card for everybody. Something that everybody can use.
Definitely. It's very, very different than what we've seen before. So like it's really I don't know, I was kind of like it disrupt the game because it's so different.
Yeah, I think anytime you make disruption cards, there's always some risk involved with it. Um, Obviously, being on the receiving end of a card like Nutanix or Dirty Rat or Blade Master Okani probably doesn't feel great. It probably doesn't feel great. I think there's a nice line that you have to ride where disruption feels worth it to yourself if you're playing it and acceptable for your opponent if they're having it played against them. I think Nutanix is a really great example of that because it is quite situational. It's something that comes down quite late in the game. And Blade Master Okani is certainly very powerful. It does have some ability to play around it, which was intentional. If Okani leaves the board, its effect is not active. So that really was sort of our effort to say, yes, this card is powerful. Yes, this card can counter anything other than, weapons and hero cards. But, you as the opponent still have the ability to play around it if you can. Kind of like secrets, where sometimes you're just in a position where you can't play around it, and then your opponent just sort of gets you. But, sometimes you can play around it, and then you feel really smart about it, and that's sort of a good experience too. So, yeah, I think this was a pretty good example of power and the ability to counteract something that your opponent is doing, but still giving the opponent some agency to protect their strategies if they've set up to be able to do so.
Okay. When you were responding, I kind of had a feeling you were referring to a priest card that
I don't know what you're talking about. No,
that got nerfed. That got nerfed.
Couldn't be.
That I really like. That I
know.
really like to play, and I'm very sad it was.
I know. Ilusha was fucking cool. Like, Ilusha reminds me so much of like. I loved Togwaggle and Azalina Soul Thief. I thought those two cards together were like just the fucking coolest cards ever. So Ilusha gave me like some, I guess, reminiscent nostalgia of that, but obviously it was much easier to use and was rightfully nerfed. But yeah, I think that doesn't mean that we, obviously feel like we should stop doing disruption. I think disruption is a really good thing in a card game, especially when you have strategies that make games look very similar from game to game. I think being able to disrupt that flow, that's exciting. It makes things feel fresh, which is really good.
Good. Chat is on fire with that comment. Bringing back Ilusha, guys.
God, don't. Well, they haven't tuned the core set yet. No, I'm kidding. Don't worry, chat. You're fine. We've done much worse.
Bring back Ilusha. Okay. Okay. I'm not saying anything more. Okay. So, how many cards do you design before narrowing down to the final amount we see now?
Oh, a lot. A lot. Yeah. So we go through in the final weeks of final design for every expansion, and we do deletions for all of the cards that are in the client that haven't made the final cut, and we keep like a master sheet of every card in every class and all the card IDs, so we hopefully don't mess things up and delete cards that we need. It has happened before, but yeah, I would say probably conservatively twice as many as get shipped, and that's even ignoring like mechanics that we just test very early on that don't make the cut, or keywords or things of that nature. It's quite a lot. Yeah, luckily it is the job of final design to have to, cut down on the set and to redesign archetypes if they're not working, and to pick what finally goes out to the public. Because when you work so closely with a set, for 16 weeks on initial design, and you're creating these archetypes and you're crafting these cards and you love them and they're so cool, then when they have to get ripped out, it like kind of hurts. It really stings. It's something that you get used to over time, but yeah, I'm glad that most of the time that's not my job.
I would be devastated having one of like my babies scratch.
Yeah, and occasionally you can open up Slack and you can be like, hey, Galen, what's going on over there? I noticed my card's yellow. Why? And most of the time they have good reasons for it, and you have to sort of concede over to them as the gameplay experts that they do know what they're doing. But we certainly have those conversations every so often, which is like, is there anything that we can do to make it so that you don't have to cut this card? Because there's certainly some really cool cards that get cut every time. But some of them we keep on hand, and they end up making it into future sets, which is always fun. I don't know that I have concrete examples of that, but it does happen from time to time.
We do have a question from chat. Who was the last person who accidentally deleted the set?
Okay, Dextech, I'm sure you actually know the answer to this. Stephen Chang. I have only heard about this secondhand. I was not there when this happened. Stephen Chang was a player. His in-game name was Puffin. Players might remember him from very early days, like ESGN Fight Night, Hearthstone. Who worked on final design for quite a long time. Shout out to Puffin. He's great. He deleted the entirety of Knights of the Frozen Throne. The whole set. The whole thing. In like his first week on the job. And they were able to recover it, obviously. But if you know like the classic story of like Toy Story 2 was accidentally deleted, and the only reason they were able to get it back is because like there was a woman on like maternity leave who had all the files on her laptop. I like to imagine it was like that. But I don't really know. But yeah, that's a funny story that he still tells sometimes.
Good. I like this little inside info. Stephen, hey.
Was he the jet? Was it woman?
Okay. Okay. So, are there a lot of extra cards that don't make it to the cut, or do you have like a smaller pool of cards that you just keep and you just like they're not in the yellow, they're like in the like waiting room in case like you have some balancing to do?
Not really. I think when we get down to the point where like cuts are having to be made, because we have to get down to 10 cards per class for the total of 135 in a set. At that point, it's pretty much, if the card isn't going to fit, rip it out of the sheet, put a new one in. And I think it's very rare that we go back on that. I'm sure it has happened, but usually it's for reasons like, the gameplay of this card is not good, or the effect of this card is warping this archetype, or, it's just not working with this archetype and we need a card that, just fits better. So usually those reasons are good enough to take designs and pull them out and put them somewhere else. I actually had, what was it? Warlock in, I can't remember if it was Stormwind or Alterac Valley, a card named Sacrificial Summoner. It's like I think it ended up as a 3/3. It's destroy a friendly minion and summon one from your deck that costs 2 more. I had a package of cards originally. Internally, they were called Big Daddy and Little Sister. And Sacrificial Summoner was Little Sister, and you were supposed to destroy a 2-cost card and pull out like a 4-cost that had a battle cry that damages itself. But when you pulled it from your deck, it wouldn't damage itself. And I was like, oh, this package of cards is really cool. But the Sacrificial Summoner ended up being the better piece, and the 4-drop just didn't make the cut. So that one, I was like, oh, that was kind of neat. But it's it's instances like those where one card might serve an archetype, or one card might serve a class for that set, and the other one just doesn't. And in those cases, something better can go in that slot.
Okay, good. Good. Okay, similarly, how many mechanics do you typically vet per expansion?
A lot. It depends, but I will say we are in, what is it? Probably we're in like the third week of archetype design for the first set of next year right now. So we just got finished up with broad mechanic design, and I think roughly just keywords, we probably tried 6 or so for this this new set that we're working on, and we did find one that we like, but yeah, there were quite a few, and that's, going in and prototyping the keyword, making a bunch of cards to be able to test that keyword, putting them in a bunch of different decks because you want to see how they play differently across different classes, and then getting everybody together for daily play tests to, vet the keywords, and then getting feedback on them, making changes. The iteration happens very quickly in that stage of the game because generally we can play with something in a couple play tests and get a feel for how powerful is this? Is this fun? Really is the question that we're trying to answer at that point. Like, is this worth spending our time on because it's fun? Does this make the game enjoyable? Does this make decks more interesting? Does this allow us to make individual card designs that are cool? And generally you can get a pretty good read on if that's the case pretty fast. So we go through things quite quickly at that point. Yeah, probably about 6 keywords or so. Major mechanics, several more. But we've got a really good team that we sort of all, cut off into our own areas and work on different things, so we can cover more ground in those, brief weeks of mechanic design. So we do actually get to test quite a bit.
Interesting. And would you say that COVID had changed the way you guys work together? Would you do like War Room before? I know you started in 2019, so I guess it was right before COVID, but still you got a little taste of it.
Yeah, I was in the office for about 6 months. And it was, I would say, not terribly different. A lot of the work was still individual, but, just being in the same space as somebody so you can, look over and be like, hey, come take a look at this. What do you think about this design? Or, so on and so forth. Definitely was easier. There's definitely much more of an effort that needs to be made to actively communicate with each other, and to, reach out and message each other regularly with ideas or with feedback or just, to see how they're doing. Just because we all work so closely together. We are in, calls every day. We play test for hours every day. We do sheet reviews. We're constantly in communication with each other, but it definitely is not quite as natural as it was when you were all in the same space. I think it has some benefits, for, I guess, me personally. I like having my space to be able to decompress when, I'm not in meetings, or to be able to take my dog for walks and things like that. I think there are benefits that I think then do trickle over into the work and into the design process, just because, you're more rested or not as stimulated or whatever it is. But I'm sure it's different for everybody. Overall, I would say it's hard to compare the two situations, especially since 4 of the people on initial design have been hired since COVID. So, although I think one of them currently is working in the office. So I guess for a bunch of us, this is really all that we know of how the team functions. And we're pretty lucky that it's a situation that we can make it work, and make it work relatively well. But I'd be lying if I said that we weren't looking forward to being in the office in the future. I think it would be a nice change of pace.
I agree 100%. I recently went back to the office 2 weeks ago, and it was so nice, like a breath of fresh air, like really cool to meet people and see their full body.
I have to say, I don't remember the last time I've turned on my camera in a meeting. Yeah. I know everybody's voices really well now, though.
Good. Okay, so do you have a favorite class to design?
Yes. I think we all kind of do. I think we all kind of do. And it's really convenient that a lot of us don't share the same favorite class to design. Like, for instance, I work on the same team as my brother, and he loves designing for Rogue and Mage and Demon Hunter. I hate designing for Rogue. I've never been a Rogue person. There's a couple of Rogue cards in this set that I do really like. One of them that actually hasn't been revealed. I really love Hook Tusk though, so this actually might be one of the sets where I do invest some time into Rogue. But I'm not the best designer on the team for Rogue in particular. But I love Shaman and I love Warrior and I love Paladin, probably because I really like mid-range and control strategies. I love making the big, dumb, cool cards that just do cool things, and that can be really difficult at times because it's hard to make a 9 or 10 cost card viable in 2022 Hearthstone. But yeah, I really like the classes that can gear towards later game strategies. I have a lot of fun with those. I think I have any examples in the set. Trench Stalker was one of them. I know a lot of people don't think Trench Stalker is very good. I think Trench Stalker is pretty good in Warrior, but I suppose we'll see. There's one other card that I think goes along with it quite well that hasn't been revealed yet, but I think it's decent. Yeah, I like the slow stuff. It's fun.
Good. You mentioned big guys. I'm kind of intrigued because in 2022, I mean, to get to turn 9 or 10, it's like very utopic. So, do you think the game is gonna slow down?
That is a goal that we have. Yeah, I think the more overarching goal is, and this is something that we've talked about quite a bit, especially in we've been doing interviews with media for the last couple of weeks for 23.0. And one thing that we've really talked about was the intent that we're putting behind making board matter and making minion combat matter. And I think that that's something that we sort of dipped our toes into with this set. Colossal Minions, for instance, are, we're investing the brand new, card type into a type of minion, which I think is very exciting and will hopefully encourage players to play some big stuff that feels like it's worth investing resources into. But certainly there's a lot of work to be done after the previous year. And I know that the big thing on everyone's mind is quest lines and is the amount of card draw in the game and the amount of mana reduction in the game. And I absolutely think that there needs to be reductions across the board. I think OTK strategies are really fun. I think that sometimes they should be viable. I think that when you have 10 viable OTK strategies or however many we ended up with, the prevalence is simply too high. And just like in a meta that is, mostly control fatigue decks or mostly really aggro decks, it's going to be really frustrating when it feels like all you're playing against is one strategy, especially if the strategy that you want to play isn't favorable against that. So I think going forward, we're trying to just readjust things, find that balance again in strategies and balance in creativity when it comes to deck building and archetypes within classes, so that classes don't feel like they're just pigeonholed into one archetype, and so that you don't feel like you're pigeonholed into playing, one deck or one type of strategy, because I think that's not fun. And ultimately, when we make 135 cards per set, plus 35 cards in a mini set, you should be able to play more than one kind of strategy. And that's not to say that I think that quest lines are bad. That's not to say that I think that OTKs are bad, because I don't. One of my favorite decks of all time is Shutterwalk Shaman, which is probably one of the most egregious offenders literally ever in so many ways. Kill your opponent from a billion attack, get a billion armor so your opponent can never kill you. Shutterwalk is the public enemy number one. But I think there's a time and place, and there's a power level that those strategies can exist within that makes them both viable while not overwhelming, and an appearance level in the meta that is the same way. And we've been over on that. So yeah, the first step was recognizing the mistakes and recognizing where change can happen. And now the steps that we are trying to take this year hopefully are going to remedy some of that and are going to make positive changes for the game that I think players will really enjoy. And yeah, I'd be lying if I said that I think everything is fixed with the Sunken City. I don't. I think that, maybe further balance changes will be required, and that's something that we're totally willing to do. But I do think it's also something that the landscape of the game is going to continue to change throughout this year. I think the 2 sets we're doing after the Sunken City are really cool, and have a lot of positives going for them in this regard as well. So I'm quite hopeful, but we certainly have a lot on our plate of things that we would like to accomplish this year.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. So I know we've talked about the favorite class to design, but do you have specific cards that you prefer to design, like spell versus minion versus anything?
I guess I've never really thought about that. I think spells are generally more open-ended as far as design. You can make spells that summon minions, but you can't really make minions that can do everything that a spell can do, if that makes sense.
Except for school teacher.
Except for school teacher, which literally does it both. I think that's why decks like Spell Hunter, for instance, like all Spell Hunter, like Rockdalar Spell Hunter, can exist and can feel viable because they have cards like the Emerald Spellstone and like Call of the Wild that can build boards, but then they have the flexibility of spells as well. Whereas things like, I guess, just all minion decks can be, I think, harder to design for. So in general, I like spells because they're more flexible. The design potential, I would say, is higher. But I guess it's not something that I've given too much consideration to because minions are fun too. And when you have to design so many minions in a set, I sure would hope that we like designing them.
Amazing. One sec. Kelly is telling me something. I need to go and check out.
What thing does she want you to do?
Okay. So we have a breaking news, guys. And so we're going to continue the interview after the breaking news. So we got some crazy information, guys. I know, crazy information. So we're going to have to change scene. 1 second.
I don't know what's happening, actually.
1 second. I think there's a... Okay. Choom. We're gonna need to 1 second. So we got information on the special reveal at 5 p.m.
Okay.
Yes.
What real is it?
Let me just copy paste it.
Chat, what's somebody link me the 5 o'clock reveal. What's happening?
Why is it saying it's private still?
Was this something we teased?
1 sec. Why is it not
Thank
working?
you, JTK. Let me look.
I will redo one.
It's the big question mark. What even? No, I dead ass chat. I don't know what that is.
1 sec.
Ooh, I know what the one at 10 a.m. on the 28th is, though. That one's cool.
Okay. Oops.
Hi, I'm Steven, Just a Guy Georgiou. And as I'm sure you know, I'm the world's foremost game designer creator.
For that card.
You're probably also huge fans of my 2 YouTube videos, the 1 episode of my Driving to Work podcast, and of course, my award-winning Twitter account. But did you know that here at the Blizzard Chicago campus, I'm also the IT manager? Now, it's sort of an unofficial job, but I do take it quite seriously. Which is why I need to apologize for the delay last week in the latest Hearthstone expansion announcement. Unfortunately, that was my fault. See, I needed to free up some space on our server to download the Murder, She Wrote Director's Cut, and I accidentally deleted something that I shouldn't have. In my defense, I wasn't wearing my glasses at the time, and I thought the folder read Journey to Ungoro. So
Has he been doing this for the last 45 minutes?
In the end, thankfully,
I swear to God,
we got everything straightened out. Now, I was worried that some people might be unhappy with me. But then I got asked to do this card reveal.
I've never seen him before
in
my life.
Put it all behind us. Now I understand
and this
there
is
are
why
many
you
deserving
should hide
content
things from
creators
your parents.
for the amazing
Don't
community
ever tell
thing
your
to choose
parents
from.
what you do.
And when
in
I
your
mentioned
work
in the past
life,
how
in your
cool it
in
would
your
be to
free
get a card
time, they
reveal,
don't need to know shit
my
about
daughter
you.
told me I would
Don't
never
tell
get
your
it.
parents anything.
Harsh, right? But somebody obviously changed their mind. And can you blame them? I mean, look at my resume. I worked on rock, paper, scissors, for God's sake. It was my idea to call it Pong. Everybody else wanted to name it Ping. Ridiculous, right? Sounds like a panda. And as everyone knows, I single-handedly created two of the finest Hearthstone game designers in history. My daughter Cora and my son Sage. Single-handedly along with my wife. So without further delay, allow me to present to you the card that I am certain will be the set-defining legendary from the Voyage to the Sunken City expansion.
So he's revealing
hang
the
on a
card.
second. I'm sorry, there's been a
revealing.
He doesn't have a card. We didn't give him a card.
Means, right?
There is no card.
Yeah, this can't be the card they expect me to reveal. Is this some kind of a practical joke?
You did not. There is no chance you actually gave this man a card.
They never even wanted me to have a card reveal, did they? Stabbing little. You know they never even watch my YouTube videos. Fine.
Not only is he the highest ranked standard player in this house, now he's the only one to get a card reveal. I can't see this game for 4 years.
For the upcoming voyage to the Sunken City expansion, I am proud to present the Demon Hunter common card, Abyssal Depths. A 4-mana shadow spell which reads, draw your 2 lowest cost.
This is a good card too!
Okay, I get it. This is all starting to make sense. Well, isn't this card something? I have to draw the 2 minions that I already have, do I?
No, none
Not
of this
going to let
makes
me
sense.
discover 2
Nothing
better
makes
minions,
sense.
maybe? Stuck with the same ones that I started
sense.
with. Well, that's life now, isn't it? You don't always get to choose your minions, do you? And what's with this lowest cost nonsense? Give me a break. You feed them, clothe them, pay for all their fancy doodads and whatchamajiggets, put them through college, put a roof over their heads. Lowest cost, my ass. Card should read, draw your 2 most expensive and ungrateful minions. That's what it should read. Until next time, thanks for watching. Maybe next time I'll get a rare or an epic. You know, all their really good cards are just my ideas they stole from me anyway. Oh, geez, I hope the kids don't see this. You know what?
I'm never doing the dishes ever again.
Someone is about to get their bill first.
In hell.
Oh my God, Cora. So you've been pranked.
Really? You think?
G'day, this is Just a Guy. I'm leaving the house and driving to work, and that should give us just enough time for a game of Hearthstone. This is episode 1 of my driving to work podcast.
He doesn't have a podcast. He has a microphone that he found in the basement.
One sec.
And a YouTube account by some...
Hey, Billy, how are you this morning?
Let me just stop this.
That's very good, Billy. It's a car.
I wish you would have
Now,
stopped
would you
it.
please be careful? Step away. Remember what almost happened last time.
Let me delete it.
The kid is nice and all, but he sneaks
Yes.
up.
Okay, sorry.
Oh my God, Reddit is gonna have a field day. This is, oh my God.
1 second. Sorry. Oh my God.
Are you having fun? Are you having fun?
So,
Are you feeling nervous? Are you having fun?
I'm sorry.
Is it
Cora.
almost over?
So, sorry, Cora. It's not me. It's your team who did that.
Don't apologize. We're not sorry. None of them are sorry.
Oh my God, I am sorry.
You're like, Cora, do you want to do a fun interview on a Sunday when you're not getting paid? And I, by the graciousness of my goodwill, say, yes, I will do an interview on a Sunday. And this is what I get. This is what I get. This is the treatment that I get
Oh my God.
as a firstborn, as a Hearthstone game developer.
So, So sorry, we had to interrupt you before the end of the interview because it went
no,
live.
it's fine. It's really fine.
So now we do have more questions.
I don't know that we do.
Can you tell me a bit about cards that didn't make the cut?
Wait a minute. Star Hunter, am I really on LSF with the dry shampoo thing?
What do you
I
mean?
got two kinds, by the way. I got cherry and general citrus. The cherry's okay. It's not great. Should have just washed my fucking hair.
Okay, so can you tell us about cards that didn't make the cut?
I don't know, can I?
I hope you can.
I'm trying to think. I need a nap. Go back to bed and forget today happened. Okay, yeah, actually, I do remember one. Nelly, the Great Thresher. One second, I need to mute your stream. Nelly used to be a big Minion support piece. I think it always summoned the pirate ship, and then the pirate ship had Death Rattle. I think fill your hand with minions that cost 5 or more. They cost 5, it might have been. I forget exactly what the design was, but I had tweeted something about like, oh, I was trying to support a big minion mechanic or a big minion archetype in Warrior because I think those are always fun. The idea of like big minions with battle cries was like just a fleeting thing. Obviously, it doesn't work well with like Cowardly Grunt and a lot of the recruit pieces, which are really sort of the backbone that like big Warrior has been built on. So it was kind of an idea that I'm like, what would this look like? And then quickly realized, oh, this doesn't look like anything. It looks bad. But Nelly was sort of a piece that was intended to sort of go in there. But then I think the Fires of Zinajari, it might be called, is kind of a card that's in like a similar space-ish. And the pirate design of Nelly, I think, captures the flavor a lot better of the pirate ship because it didn't really make sense that she was summoning a pirate ship that put a bunch of random minions in your hand. So I think it worked out for the better. But yeah, that was one of them that I can remember.
Okay, good. There has been a lot of talk about returning Hearthstone to a more board-oriented style of play and less of a win-from-hand style, as we were discussing earlier. How does this shift affect your design process? And were there cards and mechanics that you had idea for that you ended up having to redesign because of this shift?
Yeah, it definitely happens. And I wouldn't say like things that we've redesigned because of this shift. I would say it's sort of a small philosophy change that we had realized before we went into the design process. So whereas we felt that we were a bit over on like discover and generation at one point in time, but whereas we were very low on card draw in certain classes, I think we shifted more to classes being able to all draw cards and all draw quite a few cards. And then we were, we swung too far in the opposite direction and card draw was too high. Well, discover and generation was low. So that's sort of something that we had assessed and went into, designing the new set with those goals. And I think it's really important to have those goals sort of at the forefront of, okay, we want to design a set with this theme, with mechanics that fit this theme, with this style of gameplay. To have those goals really posted before you start designing, because then, we've got 5 people on the initial design team who are all off designing at the same time. And it can be hard to come up with something that's a cohesive set if you have people who are all designing under different parameters. So those parameters have to be very solid so that you can have then one cohesive expansion at the end of the day. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Okay, so now I do have more personal question for you, less Hearthstone related. Not Hearthstone related, more CORA oriented. And I guess this like special reveal is gonna affect the answer to your question.
Okay, quick question. Was that the question mark on the reveal the whole time?
Yes.
Was this always planned? Was this this was like always planned? Like from the beginning this has been planned?
Yes.
I shouldn't be surprised. Like I really shouldn't be surprised. I don't know why. Why am I surprised? Weeks? Literally weeks?
Did
everybody know? I feel like this is like the opposite of a surprise birthday party. Like I didn't get a surprise party. It's not fun. I mean, it's fun, but like it's fun for you. And for me, it's like.
Okay, so
fine.
Can you tell me what do you really think about your dad on Twitter?
I think I'm so glad that my father has a creative outlet and is having fun. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, he's jealous of me, right? You know, he's jealous of my audience. I'm kidding. No, I'm very close with my family, which is something that I'm very grateful for. I don't have a very large family. It's just me and my brother, and I really have very little extended family. So the fact that I am so close with my parents and the fact that I am unfortunately enormously like my father means that I completely understand that he would do this because I would do the same thing. And the wheels are already turning as to how I can do the same thing. So we'll see. But yeah, I think, you know, as long as he's not getting me in trouble, he's having fun with it. And I'm glad that he's having fun because he's very old and he needs hobbies and friends. So I'm glad that he sort of has those now, although I wish that it wasn't always at my expense. It's unfortunate. And I need to move out quickly. Yeah.
Do you think he's gonna pop behind you at any second?
Oh no! Behind me is a wall. I'm looking right at the door. I know it's locked. And if he, no, but I know there's gonna be dinner's gonna be weird, probably. Yeah, it is what it is. Such is life, I suppose. Everybody has their things with their family, and I guess this is just one of them. My brother is smart to stay off of social media. I wish I was so smart.
So you're mentioning dinner, and for me, that's a question I always wanted to ask you. How do you have dinner in a family that all work for game and game designing? And so do you use like mechanics of cards to talk to each other around the around the table?
He doesn't even know fucking card names. It's a miracle he got the name of his own card reveal correct. Hell no. More often than not, my dad's like, oh yeah, so I was playing a game with the minion that deals the damage and it looks like blah blah, and my brother and I have to be like, yeah, it's this card. And then he's like, oh, I want to do an arena run. Sage, can you help me draft my deck? And it's like, he thinks he's so smart.
Can you dredge me the butter?
No. Oh my god. Y'all wouldn't last a minute with Steve Georgiou, I swear to god.
Oh my god, it must be very entertaining. So does your mom like know about Hearthstone and game or not at all?
She is very supportive. Just a little bit of background. My dad owns a computer store, and originally opened his computer store because he wanted to play games all day, and then later had to, actually learn how to be a business owner. So it's not a surprise to me that my brother and I got into gaming very early, got into PC gaming very young, and card games very young. Whereas that was never my mom's thing growing up necessarily, but she tries. She when I was casting, she watched all of the matches that I would cast, and she has expressed interest in learning how to play Hearthstone at times. I don't know that I have the patience necessarily to take on that, but I think maybe my dad does. because he's, such an integral part of this community now. Certainly he could teach his own wife how to play Hearthstone. That doesn't seem like it would be too much of a task. Yeah, she's great. She's very supportive. Obviously very excited for my brother and I to, have opportunities. We're very grateful for that.
Good. So how is it to work with your brother, and how often do you boss him around?
It's hard to boss him around when he's better than me at so many things, which is horribly frustrating. My brother and I are very close, which is great because it means that we can work together and not butt heads about things. And it means that, even though I'm not working in an office, if I want feedback on something, I can, walk down the hall, there's my feedback, which is really great. And he actually did join in the team when I was leading, when we were working on the expansion that I'm leading in initial design. So that was, there's always, I think, the potential there for disagreements, but I think luckily in a lot of ways, my brother and I think very similarly, probably because we were, raised in the same environment. So there hasn't been any problems, which is really great. Just means I sort of have a built-in coworker at home that is very useful, and always have someone to run ideas by, which is really nice. And I think, obviously never expected that this would happen, but if I'm being perfectly honest, he was the one who started playing Hearthstone first, and he has always been the better player. Always. This is absolutely something that I could have seen him doing. I could have pictured him, when we were growing up in this role. I could never have pictured myself here. So I do think it at times makes more sense for him than me. Which, it's kind of funny how it worked out, I guess. We are not the only sibling pair that works at Blizzard, though. I know there's like some brothers that work on World of Warcraft. I'm sure there's more. But it's cool.
Nice. He looks sweet.
He's nice. He's got a cool beard, which is cool.
Okay. Yeah. What do you like the most about your dogs? I've seen one pass by.
About my dog?
Yeah.
I just have one dog. Her name is Bee, short for Beatrix Kiddo. Her second birthday is actually coming up on April 20th. She's born on 4/20. I like that.
Dog reveal, yes.
Dog reveal. She's laying in. I can go get her again. All right, I'll be right back.
Aww, Beatrix.
All right, this is Bee. She is a Pembroke Welsh Corgi. She is very wiggly. She's very smart. She's very driven. Corgis can be little stubborn assholes, which she certainly is, but she is a lot of fun, and she's a really good buddy. I've grown quite attached to her. So, she also takes up all my free time and is very bossy and does not want to sit in my lap right now. But we actually, the reason I could be here today is because her training class was canceled for the day. She's in like an advanced level training class, which is really cool. It's given me something to do during COVID, which has been really fun. And now she knows how to do some fun tricks, which there's no chance she'll do right now because she's quite tired. But she's cool. Dogs are cool. Dogs are fun. I like dogs.
Nice. She looks like really calm.
Sometimes, yeah. I think corgis. Okay, you want to go? Okay. Corgis can have crackhead energy, especially when they're puppies. But she's enough into adulthood now that she's calmed down a fair bit. And as long as I, take her for like an hour of exercise every morning and really run her around, she gets tired out, and then I get to be able to work, which is good. It works well. And the Blizzard office is very dog friendly. So I hope to someday be able to take her into the office. I think she would do pretty well in that environment, because she's generally pretty relaxed if she's tired. So
Good. So I do have two more questions. So one is, what's your educational background? How do you go from studying to being a game designer?
So I have a degree in broadcast communication. I once upon a time thought I wanted to be in the radio industry, which I did. I did like the work. I did a lot of newscasting in college. I was actually the best collegiate newscaster in the country at one point in time, which was very cool. I liked it a lot, but I realized I liked it because I like speaking, not because I necessarily like the radio. I actually really don't like the radio. I think a lot of radio talk is very unnatural. And I was so close to the industry for so long that I just know a little bit too much about it and a little bit too much about the people who work in it. And, a lot of those personalities, and a lot of them aren't very nice people. So yeah, when I was in college, I started playing Hearthstone, obviously. And I entered a competition called So You Think You Can Cast Hearthstone, back when Robert Wing was on the Hearthstone esports team. And that's actually how myself, Raven, and Sottle got started in official Hearthstone esports commentary. So yeah, I did that for about 4 years, and thankfully never had to go into broadcast. Although it's not something that I've ever crossed off the list of possibilities. I would still do it someday if I wanted to. I also have a long background in music. Actually, I was a singer for many years. I used to sing at weddings. I would sing in competitive vocal groups and a cappella groups and things like that. And I really loved that. And I thought, when you're a kid, everybody's like, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a princess. I wanted to be a singer. And that's also still something that I would, I'd love to be able to pursue that as a hobby. But yeah, the video games sort of turned out to be, I guess, just the path out of any number of paths that I ended up walking down. And I was just kind of in the right place at the right time. So yeah, it worked out quite well.
Nice. That's very interesting. I didn't know you could sing.
Yeah.
Songbird.
I think so. Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Okay, so my last question, and I'm gonna need lots of details on that. Mm-hmm. So we would love to know what's a day in the life of CORA. So from the moment you wake up, time and everything, to the moment you go to bed, time and everything, and the food also in between in the normal day for
food.
You.
Oh God. Okay.
There was a.
Oh yeah. I'm actually I'm very jittery right now because I had cold brew this morning. Okay, so the day in the life of CORA. So I live in the Midwest. So I am 2 hours ahead of Blizzard headquarters time. So most of my day is packed into my morning before work, rather than my evening after work. So I tend to wake up pretty early, usually 7:30ish. And the first thing I do is I take an allergy pill. Otherwise, the outside world is going to try to kill me. And then I take my dog usually for a long walk or to the park. And we usually do that for about an hour or so. Get her running around, like I said, so she's tired. And then I can come home and I can make her breakfast and I can get some coffee and I can, sit down and clock in and start working. Before I work, usually I have about an hour where I like to play some games. A lot of the time it's Battlegrounds. Sometimes nowadays it's been Valorant, although Valorant games are 30 to 40 minutes long, which means I don't have a ton of time to play them just because I don't have a lot of long stretches of time available to play games nowadays, which kind of sucks. Except for weekends, I suppose. And then I work. It's about 4 hours in the morning. In the morning is when we do stand-up or when we do play tests. And then I take a lunch break. Actually, this last month, it's been my goal because a lot of the time when you're working from home, I think it can be really easy to just like I'm in my bedroom. My bed is right there. It's easy to just get out of my desk and just go and like be a potato for like 45 minutes on lunch. But I set a goal most days this month. I saw Raren did a video where he was playing Battlegrounds while he was working out. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do that. So I've been walking a mile on my lunch break every day this month. And I've actually really liked it. It's kept me from like getting too tired in the middle of the day. I feel more energetic. I've walked like 40 miles, which for me is pretty cool. I've never been a very cardio exercise driven person. I really prefer like strength training more so. But I have been enjoying it, and sometimes take my dog for a walk on lunch rather than walk on the treadmill because if the weather's nice, which it rarely is in the winter in the Midwest, but if it's nice, you want to take advantage of it. So I try to get up and I just try to go do something because then I come back and I sit at my desk for another 4 hours. And then at night I finish work at like 8 o'clock and then I like probably fall asleep on the couch like 45 minutes later because I'm old and tired. Yeah, it's not terribly exciting. But that is, work from home life. That is 40 hours a week, which, could be much worse. So I'm very content with it right now. Certainly there's things I would like to do. And it feels like the world is maybe opening up a little bit for those things to be possible now. So that's really exciting. But I am a more introverted person. So I feel like I've gotten through the last couple of years, at least relatively unscathed, due in a large part to my dog who has, sort of kept me motivated, which has been good.
Good. At what time do you go to bed usually?
No, I usually go lay in bed and like probably sit on Reddit or TikTok or something for a couple hours, probably like 11 o'clock or midnight.
I was like, are you a kind of like, I go to bed and I'm on Reddit for an hour?
Yeah. All the studies that are like, you shouldn't be on your phone while you're in bed. Nah, always.
That's such a bad idea to be on Reddit before going to bed. Raiding.
Not in the Hearthstone subreddit. Oh my god, no.
So you haven't talked about if you drink wine, beer, if you like cheese.
I was wondering when you were going to ask these questions. I did see a question on the list of like possible questions that you'd sent over, but I was like Alkali, what is this? I don't come from a family of huge drinkers. I would not say drinking is one of my vices, but Friday when 5 p.m. rolls around, I'm like, ooh, a seltzer sometimes. And I live in the Midwest, so we have a cheese drawer in our fridge, which is pretty standard. I would say I like it a regular amount. My dog really likes cheese. When she was a puppy, we would have string cheese in the house because it was very motivational for her. So yeah, I would say thumbs up to both. Yeah, both are good.
Good. It's a typical heart to heart question. I usually ask question at the end related to food, because I am French Canadian, so I do eat cheese every meal and I do drink wine every night.
It sounds like you are very happy.
I am very happy.
I should try to do that more often. I like eat leftovers, and sometimes I'll Uber Eats like salad or poke or sushi or something, because I'm too busy working to like go eat food. Yeah, I'm really bad about keeping an eating schedule. I don't eat lunch until like 3 o'clock most days, which is past lunchtime. I guess I'll just eat dinner today. Yeah. I don't know.
Hopefully cheese. Very important.
We could put that on the menu. I bought some chicken to meal prep for the week. If I'm motivated enough, then I'll have something to eat this week, I guess.
If not, Pokeball on demand.
I fucking love Poke. Oh my god. It's so good. That getting paid every 2 weeks means I have a lot more money to be reckless about, and that just means like spending money on like ordering food and like paying for fees. Just because it's easy. I'm lazy. And I need to be less lazy.
Well, especially living with your parents. You must like be like having some more money for Uber Eats.
Well, yeah, I mean, ideally I would like to buy a house in the next couple of years, which if you're at all familiar with the Southern California real estate market, you know that it is awful and very expensive. So I try not to spend too much money, but I do have, I said alcohol wasn't one of my vices. Pokemon cards is, and that's certainly not a cheap hobby to have, unfortunately.
Okay, and do you think your parents want you out of the house, or they don't want you to leave at all?
I think if it were up to my parents, they'd live next door to me for the rest of my life, and I'm going to make sure that that does not happen. Okay. Yay. Close enough that I have a built-in, dog babysitter, but no, I'd like to. So here's the thing: I had moved to California. And I lived on my own for about 6 months prior to COVID. And it felt like some horrible, mean joke when COVID hit, because I came back home when we were told we were working from home. And I'd only intended to be here for like a couple weeks. And I was still paying rent on an apartment in Southern California. And I just ended up never going back, which I did not anticipate. I really, really wanted to go back, but we were like, oh, it'll be a couple weeks, things will get better, and they just kind of didn't. And so I never felt super comfortable flying back over to, be there by myself. I didn't, because I lived alone. I didn't want to live and work alone all the time. So yeah, and now it's 2 years later, and here we are. Yeah. It's been like a simultaneously very long and very short 2 years, It's kind of weird. But I think we're all sort of going through that shit. I think a lot of people can really relate to it. Yeah. It's been weird.
Okay. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for being here on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. And yes, it's snowing here in Montreal, so like
It snowed here yesterday too. Okay. I feel ya. Yeah.
So
as far as people in the chat who are asking about the reveal, you should be able to find it. It should be available now.
Yes, you can see it. For everyone that's asking about the interrogation mark, you can see it. It was posted by Nightbot. You can click on the link if you want to see the mysteriously reveal plus the other reveal. Yes, thank you, CORA. It was really nice to learn a bit more about you, not just Hearthstone, but for you personally. Thank you for putting yourself out there.
I wasn't necessarily expecting the personal questions, but I don't mind it. Yeah, I'm not the most interesting person by any means. I'm just sort of, I very much maintain that I was just sort of in the right place at the right time, and now I have an audience that I never anticipated. And it's not a bad thing, I think there's good and bad that goes along with it, but for the most part, I really like being able to communicate with the community and being able to, tell them about what I do, because when I was in their position, I really wanted to know about what it was like on the team and what went on behind the scenes. So I always like when I have the opportunity to be able to talk about it, because I thought it was interesting. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this, and I think the community does too. It's always good to have a bit of a perspective from inside the wall of Blizzard. So thank you for showing up and doing a live interview.
Thanks for forcing me to confront my familial issues live on stream.
I'm so excited for your tweet after that.
I was in the interviews when Alkali was interviewing, trying to get this job, and I was like, we should hire her. She is great. Oh. We all make mistakes.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Have a fantastic end of your weekend, and we will see you around Twitter.
It's lovely getting to talk to you for the first time, I guess. This is actually the first time we've met.
Yes.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, CORA.
Bye chat.